A radio intercept crackles, fragmented and barely audible. A German signals operator's panicked voice trying to report yet another lost tank column. The date is July 1943, near Kursk. The photograph beside the transcript, a battered Soviet aircraft, scarred with bullet holes, yet still streaming smoke as it circles overhead. The caption reads simply, Il-2 ground attack aircraft. How could a single plane, dubbed the Flying Tank, repeatedly cut through armored steel with impunity? Why did German commanders fail to grasp the scale of this threat until it was almost too late? The story begins deep within Soviet factories, where a desperate need for a close air support weapon collided with brutal wartime urgency. By 1939, the Red Army sought an aircraft that could survive intense ground fire while delivering devastating strikes on enemy armor. Engineers debated. Some pushed for speed, others for armor plating. A battered blueprint, dated 1940, shows an aircraft with armor plates riveted around the cockpit and engine, an innovation unheard of in contemporary designs. Why did such a heavily armored plane emerge from a nation still struggling to arm its infantry properly? What pressures forced Soviet engineers to trade agility for near imperviousness? By 1941, the Il-2's specifications startled even its creators: a 37mm cannon, multiple machine guns, and armor thick enough to deflect 12.7mm rounds. Weighing over 4,600 kilograms empty, it was slow, lumbering, almost tank-like in the sky, a contradiction in terms. A detailed cross-section from a factory manual reveals the cockpit surrounded by a 5mm steel shell, a literal shell within a shell. Pilots reported feeling almost invincible, yet the aircraft's sluggish speed and limited maneuverability made it vulnerable to faster fighters. How did Soviet commanders reconcile these weaknesses with their heavy reliance on the Il-2? Could such a paradoxical design truly revolutionize battlefield tactics? The true test came during the Battle of Stalingrad in late 1942. The 2nd Assault Aviation Regiment was tasked with halting German tank advances near the Don River. Initial orders underestimated the Il-2's impact, expecting it to serve only as a support element. However, after the first sorties, ground commanders reported entire columns immobilized, tracks shredded, crews panicked. A grainy film reel shows a single Il-2 strafing a convoy, smoke rising from multiple burning tanks. Yet German after-action reports dismissed these losses as random, isolated incidents. How did German intelligence so drastically misjudge the Il-2's battlefield role? Was there a deliberate blindness at play? In response, German units scrambled to develop countermeasures. By early 1943, tank crews were issued additional rear-facing machine guns and were trained to disperse formations quickly. Tactical manuals updated in March include warnings to anti-aircraft gunners. Priority target, the armored aircraft. Yet field reports from the Eastern Front describe growing frustration. The Il-2 proved resilient, able to absorb multiple hits before losing effectiveness. A captured Soviet tactical map annotated with airstrike zones reveals patterns German commanders struggled to disrupt. Why did such adaptations come slowly? And why did the German High Command resist fully acknowledging the Il-2's threat? The turning point came during the Kursk Offensive, summer 1943. German panzer divisions reported catastrophic losses to air, attacks despite improved defenses, supply lines clogged, tank repair units overwhelmed. An intercepted protocol from a panzer division headquarters shows commanders demanding urgent air cover, yet Luftwaffe resources were stretched thin. Meanwhile, Soviet units coordinated massive Il-2 strikes timed with artillery barrages. The battle's map, overlaid with strike coordinates, illustrates a deadly choreography. How close did this synergy bring the Germans to collapse? Could the Luftwaffe have altered the course if they had prioritized countering the flying tank earlier? Each episode is a document I pull from the dust of the archives. Share your own stories. Many of you have relatives who lived through that time, and your words help connect personal memory with archival evidence. Stay curious. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode tomorrow. Amid the chaos of Kursk, a shattered German reconnaissance photo surfaced, an aerial view of a shattered tank column, the wreckage strewn, like toys across the muddy steppe. Smoke curls silently from overturned vehicles, but what draws the eye is a single intact Il-2 parked nearby, its armored frame almost mocking the destruction it wrought. This was no accidental encounter. It was a calculated strike, executed with brutal precision. Yet, intercepted communications reveal confusion at the German command level. Reports labeled these attacks as isolated sorties, failing to grasp the relentless systemic nature of the Il-2's assault. How could such a persistent threat remain underestimated when the evidence smoldered in plain sight? Behind the scenes, Soviet air commanders were pushing the Il-2 beyond its original design parameters. Flight logs from mid-1943 show increasing sortie rates, sometimes up to 5 missions a day per aircraft. Maintenance crews labored under extreme conditions, patching bullet holes and replacing engines in makeshift field workshops. A worn-out parts catalog, marked with Cyrillic annotations, hints at constant improvisation. Cannons swapped for heavier calibers, armor plates reinforced. Pilots' memoirs describe the aircraft as a flying fortress, almost indestructible in the face of ground fire, yet still vulnerable to enemy fighters. Why did Soviet logistics gamble so heavily on a single type of aircraft, and how did they sustain such a relentless operational tempo without collapsing? The German response escalated beyond tactics to technological attempts at neutralization. Intelligence reports from late 1943 detail experimental development of specialized anti-aircraft weapons, high-velocity 37mm cannons designed specifically to penetrate the Il-2's armor. Field tests, documented in a secret memorandum, revealed mixed results. The new guns could pierce the armor, but the Il-2's low altitude and unpredictable attack runs made targeting difficult. Additionally, German fighter squadrons were redeployed to provide constant cover for tank columns. Yet pilots complained about the IL-2's resilience and high pilot skill. An intercepted Luftwaffe briefing transcript mentions frustration. The flying tank is a ghost we cannot pin down. What limitations in German production and doctrine prevented them from turning these experimental advantages into battlefield success? Meanwhile, the psychological impact on German tank crews was profound. Letters from frontline soldiers describe a growing dread of the low-flying, black smoke-trailing Il-2, nicknamed the Black Death by some units. A rare wartime photograph captures a group of exhausted tankers huddled under a tree, gazing skyward with mixture of fear and awe as an Il-2 roars overhead. Despite reinforced armor and new tactics, many crews reported abandoning vehicles after attacks, citing the aircraft's ability to strike with near impunity. This erosion of morale is echoed in secret diary entries from a panzer officer. No matter how many tanks we lose, it returns. How is this even possible? Was the Il-2's success as much psychological warfare as it was physical destruction? As 1944 dawned, Soviet command integrated Il-2 units into combined arms operations with unprecedented coordination. Radio transcripts from frontline communications show synchronized strikes timed with infantry advances and artillery barrages. The aircraft's role shifted from mere tank hunter to spearhead of offensive operations, breaking enemy lines with air power alone. A rare Soviet tactical map overlays Il-2 flight paths, with tank battalion movements, revealing a deadly dance that trapped German forces in kill zones. Yet German war diaries hint at a growing sense of inevitability. No countermeasure seemed sufficient. Why did German command fail to develop a comprehensive doctrine to neutralize the IL-2 before it irreversibly shifted the balance of power on the Eastern Front? The relentless pressure forced German industry into emergency production of new tank models with enhanced anti-aircraft armament, Flak, cannons mounted directly on vehicles. Yet these developments arrived too late. By mid-1944, Soviet Il-2 units had become symbols of unstoppable force, their armored shells slicing through columns with devastating regularity. A preserved battlefield sketch shows dozens of destroyed German tanks around a single Il-2 crash site, an eerie testament to the aircraft's final acts in battle. Radio chatter from retreating German units reveals bitter acknowledgement. The flying tank was no mere aircraft. It was a revolution in warfare they were never prepared to face. What larger shifts did the Il-2's unstoppable advance foreshadow for the future of armored and air warfare? In the aftermath of the summer offensives, a fragment of a German war diary was discovered, its pages singed and torn. An officer's desperate plea for reinforcements and air cover to counter the Il-2 onslaught. The entry, dated August 1944, reads, "Our armor is bleeding. These planes are not mere aircraft, but death incarnate." Nearby, a blurred photograph shows a column halted abruptly, tanks abandoned, their turrets facing skyward as if pleading for mercy. Yet, despite mounting losses, German high command hesitated to fully acknowledge the Il-2's transformative impact. What bureaucratic inertia or underestimation kept them from prioritizing a decisive shift in doctrine against this relentless adversary? Soviet production records from late 1944 reveal staggering numbers. Over 36,000 Il-2s built since the war began, a testament to industrial might under extreme duress. Factory floor photographs depict workers, men, women, even teenagers, assembling the flying tank with urgent precision, their faces smeared with oil and sweat. Spare part shortages were common, yet improvisation and determination kept the assembly lines moving. A wartime propaganda poster emblazoned with the Il-2 soaring over a shattered German tank symbolized not just a weapon, but Soviet resilience itself. How did such mass production maintain quality and effectiveness amid relentless bombing and resource scarcity? Meanwhile, pilots' after-action reports illuminate the grueling reality of Il-2 missions. Flying low under heavy anti-aircraft fire, often without fighter escort, many crews did not return. A faded photo album recovered from a Soviet airfield shows young pilots, their faces stern yet determined, posing beside their battered machines, some bearing dozens of bullet holes yet still airborne. Medical records indicate high attrition rates, but official memos praise the aircraft's survivability as unmatched. What human cost lay behind the aircraft's seeming invincibility, and how did this shape Soviet aircrew training and morale? On the German side, efforts to replicate or counter the Il-2 concept yielded little success. Experimental aircraft projects aimed at combining heavy armor with ground attack roles faltered due to weight and performance limitations. A classified Luftwaffe engineering report from 1944 laments, "No aircraft can match the Il-2's armor without sacrificing essential agility." Simultaneously, German tank crews adapted, deploying mobile flak units and altering formations. Yet these measures only delayed the inevitable. Secret correspondence between German generals reveals frustration and disbelief. We face an enemy who turns our strengths into vulnerabilities. Was the Il-2's design a unique convergence of technology and strategy, that fundamentally outpaced German. Innovation? As the Red Army pushed westward in late 1944, the Il-2 became a symbol of Soviet dominance on the battlefield. Its presence forced German units into constant defensive postures, disrupting supply lines and morale. A weathered battlefield sketch shows the devastating impact of coordinated Il-2 strikes on a retreating panzer division, with wreckage scattered for miles. Yet, beneath this tactical success lay a strategic question. Did reliance on the Il-2 mask deeper weaknesses in Soviet combined arms doctrine, or was it the key to unlocking victory? How did this aircraft redefine the brutal calculus of armored warfare on the Eastern Front? In the war's final months, surviving German tank commanders spoke in grim tones of the flying fortress that haunted every advance. Interrogation transcripts from captured officers reveal a grudging respect mixed with disbelief. It was like fighting a ghost made of steel and fire. A damaged Il-2, displayed in a captured Soviet airbase, bore the scars of countless encounters, yet remained a symbol of relentless Soviet air power. What legacy did the Il-2 leave for post-war military aviation? And how did it shape the evolution of close air support doctrine for decades to come? In the quiet aftermath of battle, a forgotten cache of correspondence between Soviet frontline commanders surfaced, letters praising the Il-2 not just as a weapon, but as a morale beacon. One letter, dated February 1945, describes how the flying tank struck terror into German forces, breaking hardened defensive lines with a ferocity previously unseen. The accompanying photograph depicts a battered Il-2, its wings smeared with mud and blood, yet standing defiantly amidst the rubble. Yet behind this image lay a complex truth. The aircraft's dominance was as much a product of evolving tactics and relentless Soviet coordination as it was of armor and firepower. How did the interplay of technology and human will shape this unstoppable force? Archival, training manuals, recently declassified, reveal the rigorous preparation Soviet pilots underwent to master the Il-2's unique challenges. Flying low and slow under intense fire demanded nerves of steel and precise coordination with infantry and artillery. One manual's diagram shows the ideal attack vector: diving at a 45-degree angle, firing the 37mm cannon to disable tracks, then retreating before enemy fighters could respond. Yet pilot memoirs hint at a shadow side. Losses were high, and many missions ended in fiery crashes. A weathered photograph shows a squadron gathered for a briefing, faces tense beneath the weight of imminent danger. How did Soviet air doctrine evolve to balance the Il-2's strengths against its vulnerabilities? German tactical reports from early 1945 provide a grim counterpoint. Despite desperate innovations, such as deploying heavier flak concentrations and coordinating fighter patrols, the Il-2 continued to decimate armored formations. A captured German map, annotated with red crosses marking tank losses, reveals the devastating effectiveness of Soviet air-ground cooperation. Yet German commanders complained of fractured supply lines and exhausted troops, the psychological toll as severe as the physical destruction. Radio intercepts capture a voice breaking under strain. "We are losing more than men and machines. We are losing the will to fight." What role did the Il-2 play in eroding German combat effectiveness beyond the battlefield? Behind the front lines, Soviet engineers relentlessly upgraded the Il-2 platform. Factory blueprints show incremental improvements, reinforced armor plating, enhanced weapon mounts, and more powerful engines to offset weight gains. Field modification records indicate that crews often adapted aircraft on site, fitting extra guns or replacing damaged components with scavenged parts. A faded photograph captures a mechanic's hands stained with grease, working under dim light to keep the flying tank battle ready. How did this continuous evolution contribute to the Il-2's sustained dominance in a war marked by rapid technological change? In the war's final offensives, the Il-2 became emblematic of Soviet combined arms mastery. A panoramic war correspondence photo from March 1945 shows a formation of Il-2s flying low over shattered German defenses near Berlin, their black smoke trails etching a grim signature across the sky. Simultaneous radio transmissions, coordinate attacks with artillery, barrages and infantry pushes, a deadly symphony of destruction. Yet, captured German strategic evaluations lament the inability to counter this integrated approach, marking the Il-2 as a pivotal factor in the collapse of the Eastern Front. Could the failure to neutralize the flying tank be seen as a critical turning point, sealing the fate of Nazi Germany? In the final days before victory, surviving German tank crews recounted encounters with the Il-2 with a mixture of fear and reluctant admiration. Interrogation notes describe pilots who, despite overwhelming odds, managed to evade or repel the flying tank, yet acknowledged such successes were rare. A haunting photograph shows a downed Il-2, its pilot solemnly saluting nearby German soldiers, a silent testament to the brutal respect earned through fire and steel. What lessons did both sides learn from this brutal contest of armor versus air? And how did the flying tank shape the future battlefield doctrines that emerged from the ashes? In the uneasy calm following the war, military analysts pored over the surviving documents, photographs, and testimonies to piece together the full impact of the Il-2. A faded post-war report highlights the aircraft's revolutionary role, not merely as a bomber or fighter, but as a mobile armored platform that redefined close air support. The flying tank had shattered old doctrines, forcing armies to rethink the relationship between air power and ground forces. Yet, the same report hints at lingering questions. Did the Soviet emphasis on the Il-2 come at the cost of other air capabilities? Was its success a unique product of Soviet industrial might and tactical innovation? Or could it have been replicated elsewhere under different circumstances? Decades later, veterans from both sides recall the Il-2 with a mixture of reverence and dread. In interviews, former Soviet pilots speak of their aircraft as both protector and executioner, while German tank commanders describe it as an almost supernatural adversary, impervious and relentless. Museums now display the battered remains of Il-2s as symbols of endurance and innovation, but behind the metal and rivets lies a deeper story of human courage, sacrifice, and adaptation. What truths remain hidden in the shadows of those battles, lost to time or deliberately obscured by the fog of war?